I had to laugh when I read this next section by Solomon. It's in chapter 4, verses 1 to 12. And Solomon is observing things, okay? Life from apart from God. And he's noticing three things that I'm sure you've seen too, and I've seen. And I was laughing a lot because my mother used to tell me when I was a little boy, "Son cattivo ragazzo." And those of you who are Italian know what I said. Okay? And she was basically telling me I was a bad boy, but she would also tell me some other things too. You know, and I remember running from my mother chasing me with a broom, and sometimes with a sandal, and me running, laughing because I know my mother couldn't hurt me. My dad, that's another thing, and Italian mothers would say that too. Wait till your dad gets home, or wait till your dad hears. That will send fear into you. Okay? But Solomon's looking at life, and we're seeing it too. If you watch the news past 4 years or recently, everything what he's going to tell you is so obvious. Okay, so let me just read it to you a little bit, and then I'll bring this back in. But I have clear visual memories of my mom. As hilarious as it was, you know, Italian mothers really love their children, especially their sons. But they can get tough with them too. Okay, so I want you to notice three things, especially when you're doing good inductive Bible study, to pay attention to phrases that are repeated. And in this case, he's going to repeat three things. He says, "I saw, I looked and I saw, I looked and I saw." Okay, he's making an observation about life. And listen to this first observation he makes, and tell me if this isn't true. He says, "I looked and I saw all the oppression that was taking place under the sun." Again, that's a key phrase in the book of Ecclesiastes. It's used over and over. Basically, it's an expression that means under the sun that eternity is not in mind. God is not in the picture. Okay? "I saw the tears of the oppressed, and they have no comforter." People that are being oppressed. Now think of people in your community in the United States, all over the world, that are being oppressed by certain people. And he says, they had no comforter. Power was on the side of the oppressors. And then politicians, kings, or monarchs, or, you know, dictators. Power is on the side of the oppressor. Judges, certain political parties. And he says, and even they have no comforter. Then he says, "And I declare," and here's this observation. As your, I'm thinking of what my mom used to tell me. And especially when I was a bad boy. And I was a pretty bad boy. "And I declared that the dead who had already died are happier than the living, who are still alive. I declare that the dead are happier than the living that are still alive. But better than both is he who has not yet been born, who has not seen the evil that is done under the sun." So what he was basically saying was, if you live, you're going to see the oppression of life, and you're going to see that there is no comfort. And I can think back to my mother. "I wish to God you had never been born." Now, of course, you know, when moms say that, they don't really mean that. Okay, especially an Italian mother. You know, "I wish to God you were never born," you know. What's worse is, "I hope you have a child just like you." Yeah. But in other words, you can reproduce in your life what has already been doing, you've been doing to her. Maybe worse. Okay? So Solomon is making that observation. We see the oppressed all the time on the news. We've seen that under the sun, apart from God, there's a lot of oppression, and that you're going to see it. You're going to see it. It's going to bother you. You know, a lot of people are bothered by Biden pardoning his son, especially when he lied about it. But he's been lying all along. Who could have not expected that? You know, and all the other lies they said. And so he's saying basically it'd be better off if you had never been born to see all this stuff that's going on under the sun. That's the first observation he made. Now, let's look at the second one. The second one is hilarious too. I've never got involved with it, but a lot of people do. And I saw all labor and all achievement spring from man's envy of his neighbor. This too is meaningless, a chasing after the wind. In other words, competition to look better or do better with your neighbor or your competitor is what drives you to do what you do. I got to cut my grass better than his. He got a new speedboat. I got to get one too. He's got a better looking wife than me. Maybe I better get one too. It happens. He's got a younger wife. I get a younger one. You know, and they're always in this competition. He makes more money than me. I got to make more money than him. I got to do some side hustles in order to make some more money. In other words, it's always just keeping up with the Joneses, trying to outdo your neighbor. And he says, I saw that labor and all achievements spring from man's what? Envy of his neighbor. This too is meaningless. The fool folds his hand and ruins himself. Better one handful with tranquility than two handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. So he's saying all that effort and labor and work and pursuing that career just to show your neighbor that you're better, or to prove to your father that you're better, or to gratify your wife who wants more, is meaningless. It all strives from envy. Third thing he saw. And I saw something meaningless again under the sun. There was a man all alone. He had neither son nor brother. There was no end to his toil, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. For whom am I toiling, he asked, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? This too is meaningless. What he was saying is there are a lot of people that are misers. They don't have anybody in their life. So all they do is try to get more and more and more and hoard. Okay? And he's looking at them and he's thinking to himself, what a waste of time that is. And he says, this too is meaningless, a miserable business. So first he saw, you know, that there's a lot of oppression. Be better off if you were never born. Then he saw people competing with one another out of envy. Now he's seeing these misers that hoard. They're not ones to give or share in charity or do something for other people. They're very narcissistic. If you think narcissism is new today, it's been all around since the fall of man. Okay, so he sees these three things under the sun. Now he's going to make an observation. Look, if you're going to live like that, this is what you need. And he says in verse 8, he says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their work. If one falls down, his friend can help him up. But pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. Also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, two can defend himself, and a cord of three strands is not quickly broken. So in this miserable life that he's seeing, you know, with all the oppression, the keeping up with the Joneses, the people that are hoarders and misers and the Scrooges for Christmas and all that, he says, and all that, the only thing that's going to be beneficial to you is if you have a companion that can keep you warm, can add a little to your income, you know, and can, as somebody comes against you, can stand with you to be strong. But Solomon didn't live the day. You have the feminist movement, you got the curse of women, you know, but people are living longer. So what happens? A lot of men, I know a lot of guys, they go overseas to get wives and bring them here because they're lonely or for companionship or to keep them warm. King David did that. He was getting old in age, and he says, "Oh, we need to find somebody to, for the body warm." And that's true. I was recently watching a documentary of some Afghan women that live up in the hills, and it was really cold. And they were living in a cave, and there was 12 of them. And they had blankets on the bottom of this cave, but it was cold. And so they all had their blankets together, and they were all huddled together. And that kept their body heat, kept them warm. So in Solomon's pessimistic view of life apart from God, he's seeing all this oppression. He's seeing all this competition. He's seeing all this miser hoarding. And he says, look, if you're going to be miserable, you might as well find somebody that can share in your misery, because that will at least be beneficial to you. Well, thank God the Christian life isn't like that. Okay? We have a whole different kind of motivation and reason and purpose for living. And we look at life through a whole different set of lenses. I hope you do. God bless you. If you don't, you need to know the Lord Jesus Christ. Invite him into your life. Start reading his Bible and ask him how you can make a difference in the lives of other people. I'll see you later. God bless you.